the topic is mental health, but more specifically, what to do about it.
Right. Yeah.
And the first part of that, from our combined experiences, is having the ability to recognize you have a problem.
Yeah. Yeah. That can be a tricky one too, for
Oh,
sure.
absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. But you can't do a whole lot with your problem until you are willing to self-examine and recognize that there is actually, that you have something going on that's not what everybody else would consider normal,
Yeah.
so to say. Some statistics. What is mental health? The Mayo Clinic defines it as the overall wellness of how you think, regulate your feelings, and behave. And there are people out there that experience significant disturbances in these functions. And whenever you're doing that, it's relatable to having people say mental issues to kind of soften it, I guess, a little bit. I do that. I notice I do that a lot myself. I'll say mental issues instead of mental illness or mental problems, which, I mean, it's all really kind of the same thing, I guess.
I mean, it is a medically
Recognized.
yeah,
Absolutely.
medically recognized. There we go. Thank
Absolutely.
you.
Absolutely. And when you have mental issues, whether it's mental illness or diseases that affect your mental health, it causes a problem. And again, this is still from that Mayo Clinic link. You have they say a mental disorder may affect how well you are able to maintain personal or family relationships, function in a social setting, perform at work or school, learn at a level expected for your age and intelligence, and participate in other important activities. And I would pretty much agree with all those, because I know that I've dealt with shit, and I know that you've dealt with shit. And it can affect all those things. And I would say I haven't even dealt with a lot of things that, so there's hardcore stuff out there that affects people. And I wouldn't consider myself in the ballpark of some of the what I consider to be hardcore. Like, I've been diagnosed with depression before. And I can attest that it affects your personal relationships, your ability to perform at 100% at your work or in a social setting. But I wouldn't compare that. I mean, I guess it's not a good comparison to make to begin with, but I wouldn't compare that with having, something, bipolar or, schizophrenia, which are also considered, mental diseases and illnesses.
Yeah. Yeah, I think last time we talked, I brought up that I'm on. I've suffered with depression as well, and alcoholism for a very long time. I'm actually going back into treatment, but I can attest to every one of those bullet points, dude.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah,
Exactly.
yeah. So it's. I
No
almost lost my
joke.
job. Almost lost my family. I don't do social settings because I feel so awkward and I like judge myself too much. I can't function in social settings. I definitely am not learning like I used to be able to because my brain can't hold memory very well.
Yeah. Yeah.
Essentially, my short-term memory is shot, and you can attest, you can witness that, right? Because we'll be on the phone and I'll say the same thing 3 times in a row.
Yeah. Just to cover down for yourself. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, because I've caught myself doing that a couple times, but anyway, and then of course I'm participating in important activities. Like I don't exercise. I don't do the things that I like to do. I like to hike and mountain bike and listen to live music, and I just don't do any of that anymore. So I'm not even living life the way I like it all.
Yeah.
Anyway, so just wanted to hit those
Oh
points
yeah. No.
because
Yeah. It does it. It's also
yeah,
important to point out, cultural norms and social expectations play a role in defining mental health disorders, but
yeah, definitely.
there's no standard measure across cultures to determine whether a behavior is normal or not. So
That's true. Yeah,
yeah, it's kind of one of those things where it's like, if society deems something out of the ordinary than it is, yet there's nothing hard or black and white per se to actually allude to what the norm or what non-norm is. It's just one of the reasons why, mental health is such an issue.
It's also kind of a newer category, right? I mean, I don't really know the history, but I don't think a couple hundred years ago they actually addressed mental health.
I mean, I still don't think they address it properly now in a lot of cases.
Yeah, not even now. Yeah.
So I don't even think that was on their radar a couple hundred years ago. If you had something wrong with you, they just wanted to cut your arm and let the demons bleed out or something crazy.
And again, I'm no expert on that, but I'm pretty sure, yeah, that's accurate. Yeah, they didn't even recognize this stuff.
No, and it's also though important to understand that diagnosis or diagnostically and statistically, mental orders are defined by the DSM, right, which is a guide for mental health care providers. And it's important that that's the case because that's what's going to decide how well your insurance helps you out whenever you establish you have an issue and you actually seek help.
Which is a good thing. I mean, yes,
absolutely,
we could do better at it, but if without that, insurance companies wouldn't even cover.
Because they'd have no guidelines for it at all. Just you saying you have a mental health problem and your insurance company saying, we don't believe you.
Right.
No such thing. Yeah, with the DSM, your doctor can say no, or it might not be your doctor. Like I use the VA, you use the VA. In our case, it would be the actual mental health, section of that. But essentially, it's the same thing. It's going to be psychologist, a clinical psychologist, a psychologist. It's going to be an individual of that nature.
Substance abuse specialist. Yeah.
It ain't just some dude that got a degree in YouTube studies.
Right.
Yeah. It's going to be somebody who's actually qualified to say, hey, this person probably should get some help.
A good thing, and there is help out there, which we're going to get to, I think, a little more later, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. There's definitely help out there. I want to throw up some statistics real quick. So some statistics, according to the NIH, which is the National Institute of Mental Health, mental illnesses are really common in the United States. 1 in 5 adults lives with a mental illness. 53 million in 2020, and it includes many different conditions in varying degree of severity, ranging from mild to moderate to severe.
I'm going to take a wild guess here that that's actually underreported as well.
So
that's just diagnoses, right?
Ironically enough, I actually couldn't find any hard statistics for the last 3 years since COVID. I did find a little bit later on that we'll go over in regards to the impact that COVID had, but there's not, you can Google it and it doesn't just come up with a bunch of stuff that's, gotcha links or anything like that. It's kind of crazy that they're not reporting on that now that it's 2023.
I will tell you from experience, because I went through a lot of mental health stuff through the pandemic. Getting help was almost impossible because all the mental health specialists were just completely booked for 6 months to a year.
And not a whole lot's changed in that regards now. They're still booked out 6 months, a year, 18 months. Yep. Yeah, it's kind of crazy, to be honest.
Yeah, I wish they'd be more transparent about it, but that's a whole other conversation we could get into.
Yeah, I honestly don't think they ever will be fully transparent about around the impact that the pandemic had on society. And when I say pandemic, I don't want it to be confusing for anybody. I don't mean the illness itself. I mean how everybody reacted to the illness was far, far more devastating than anything COVID actually brought to the table itself.
Yeah. I agree with that statement. From my observation, anyways. I mean, that data to back that up isn't readily available. I mean, I'm sure it's there, but
yeah, you got to dig for it.
yeah.
For the purpose of, I actually don't know why, because I'm not a medical professional on this level, but they segregate or compartmentalize mental illnesses condition wise into two categories.
Okay.
AMI and SMI. AMI is for any mental illness. AMI is in Alpha Mike India. And then SMI is serious mental illness.
Oh, interesting. I didn't know that. Okay.
Yeah, and they do that. If you read that link more, which I'll include when I go through the post editing process. Any mental illness is defined as behavioral or emotional. It can impact ranging from no impairment to mild, moderate, and severe, depending upon the individual with the condition. SMI, or serious mental illness, is defined as mental, behavior, or emotional disorder resulting in serious functional impairment, which substantially interferes with or limits one's major life activities. So I'm guessing they compartmentalize them like that for diagnostic / insurance purposes. To try to possibly push the more severe cases, maybe not to the front of the line, but to make sure, since it would seem by the diagnosis that they need help, that they actually get help.
So that's a way to kind of like triage then.
Yeah.
Okay.
For them to take someone like me, who's been dealing with stuff for years now, who almost grasps what to do when something happens without losing my shit all the way.
Yeah.
If I decide to go in because I have something wrong with me, they know they can sit there and talk to me and probably schedule me, another appointment next week and the week after. They might or might not give me meds, and they'll just check up on me. Maybe I just need somebody to talk to that I'm not, maybe I just need something to get off of my chest. And somebody that has a severe issue might have a lot more that they need than just talking to somebody once a week.
Yeah. Interesting. So the next link you have on here does bring up, this is from the WHO, so we all know that, well, I won't get into conspiracy theories, sorry. But the WHO is reporting that COVID-19 pandemic triggers 25% increase in prevalence of anxiety and depression worldwide.
Yeah, 25% increase. That's a lot.
That's huge. Yeah.
That's a lot.
That's billions of people.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yep. Yeah, but the very soft estimate, a very conservative estimate, at least hundreds of millions of people.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I would believe more on the billions side, right? So 25% is what, 2 billion people. If we're at 8 billion now,
and you're talking about underreporting too. This is only cases that actually, decided to seek help. And got diagnosed. So if that number is, I didn't see anywhere in the link where it shows plus or minus what their percentage is, how they got that number. Yeah. But just imagine if it's really even just 30%, just a 5% increase is huge.
Yeah.
That's a third of the planet. Yeah. That's a third. That's a third. That's what, 8 billion people, 8 point something. That's, almost 3 billion people.
Yeah, that's insane, man.
And yeah, we just don't have as a planet. If you want to look at it as a planet, there is just not a system put in place to react to something like that. It doesn't exist.
It doesn't exist anywhere. I mean, we saw them try to and fail miserably, but at least they tried, I guess. Trying to be optimistic here. I don't know.
Well, to go down the rabbit hole just a little tiny bit,
mm-hmm.
as we alluded to earlier, the problem with COVID is that a lot of things surrounding it aren't mainstream yet, right? Statistics and everything else. So it doesn't matter how hard they're trying to handle what we have. We don't even have all the information to handle yet.
Right.
So that's bad in my opinion, because it's putting, it's pumping the brakes on people getting help that they actually need. That's going to make a difference in their life.
It's kind of a depressing topic, man.
Yeah, well, it's a good thing.
It's a serious one though, so it's good to have. But,
it's a good thing that topics in the mental health category then. And yeah, it's crazy recognizing that you have a problem. Doesn't matter what it is, which is the point. Alcoholism, depression,
schizophrenia,
whatever it
disorder.
is.
Yeah, the list is pretty long.
And you don't have to be the one to recognize it either. If you have a bunch of people coming to you saying, "Hey, bro," or "Hey, sis," or "Hey, girl," or "Hey, whatever," maybe you should go talk to somebody. If it's one person, sure, I would dismiss one person. Like if one of my kids was like, "Oh, Dad, you need that," I'd be like, "Yeah, whatever."
Yeah, that's your perception.
Yeah, but if all three of them, and then you, and then my mom, and then whoever else was, I'd be like, okay, that's 5 people. I'm definitely the minority here. Maybe I should go get some. Maybe I should get an outside opinion that doesn't know me and see what they say.
That's a really good sign. I'm glad you bring up that point, because a lot of times we'll be in denial about it, but and then like you said, one person says it, all right, maybe you're just perceiving me wrong. But if everyone that cares about you saying it, that's a good sign that what you just said, I should go get help, or at least ask about it.
Yeah,
That's a good point. I'm glad you brought that up.
It's one dudes, and I'm not, trying to be sexist, but it's just a fact. And veterans, it's a different breed of people, and they're not always going to recognize it, because that's just how it is.
Yeah, because we're kind of trained by society and in the military sense as well to just move on, fight through it. Mission comes first, never quit. And that, not that that's a bad thing, but it can, like what you're hinting at, I think, is that it can make a major deterrence to actually asking for help when you've been conditioned your whole life to just power through and
absolutely 100%
and provide results. And so we forget to take a step back and take a look at ourselves. Yeah, that's a good point too. I think that's just a cultural thing more than anything, but definitely I think men get it more in veterans. But I'm not saying anyone can have that cultural pressure on them to.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, it's not just us. It's a lot of people.
Oh yeah.
So now that we've talked about recognizing that you have an issue, which is probably the most important step in my opinion, because the old adage, if it's not broke, don't fix it.
Right. Yeah.
So if you don't recognize something's wrong, then there's no reason to try to fix it, right? So when you recognize that there is an issue, which is the next point, when to get help after it's recognized, obviously. And I would say, without looking at any links, immediately. That's just what I would tell someone if they think, or if a bunch of their family or loved ones or friends, everybody's telling them they need help, I would say do it. Now. Don't wait. At least call somebody. Whatever you got to do. Because people often don't get, because they don't know where to start. And there are for people that don't think they have anybody to talk to. It sounds really bad, but if you just don't know what to do, call 911.
Absolutely.
And whenever somebody answers, "What's your emergency?" Just make it clear to them right away. Hey, this might not be an emergency for you, but it's an emergency for me. And explain it to them, and they will try to connect you with whoever. They have the ability through their operator switchboards to actually connect you to hotlines without you having to look up the information. Because sometimes, especially if you're having a panic attack, you're not going to think to sit down and Google your zip code and all this other crap. So just last ditch effort. If you're really there, just call 911 and tell them what's going on. And there are other lines. You can call 988. I guess that's their 911. That's the suicide and crisis lifeline, but you can still do it, and they will also connect you with who they think that you might need. Trained crisis workers, and I get it, they're not all sitting there with a PhD. I understand that. But they're
going to get you in touch with the right resources.
Is how to get help.
Yeah.
Which is, knowing to call 988 or the military one source or the crisis line, or your mom, your dad, your brother, your best friend that you haven't talked to in 4 years. And I understand, and we've had this discussion before, everybody doesn't have somebody to call. I completely understand that.
Yeah.
But if you do, if you have that dude like me that you can call at 2:00 in the morning, call him. Yeah. Call him.
Yep. Absolutely.
Call him. Do it.
I was going to bring us back to that if you didn't. Cool. All right.
Yeah, don't wait. Do it. If you have to call your mom at 2:00 in the morning, call your mom. Even if your mom or your best friend says, "Hey, dude, it's 2 a.m." and you guys argue for a half an hour, and then he gives you other numbers to call him anyways. It doesn't matter. Yeah. Call somebody.
I'd even say call me, but I'm not putting my number out there.
And then use resources. Use the resources that you do get. Don't sit on it and say, and I've done this, and you've probably done it, and probably 10 million other dudes have done it, if not more. Mm-hmm. Is you get a couple resources, and like you said earlier, you get overwhelmed, and you just, I'll do it tomorrow. No, do it today. Unless you just got off the phone with me and it's 2 a.m., then you have to wait for tomorrow. Yeah. But I mean, that's only 4 or 5 hours that you got to make it before things open. It's fine, Yeah. But don't wait. I'll do it tomorrow. I'll do it tomorrow. I'll do it tomorrow. Procrastination is not always your best friend, especially when it comes to your mental health.
Yes. Great point. Yeah. Yep. The longer you wait, the more severe it can get. Yeah.
And that also gives you time to overthink shit. And to lower your self-esteem more, right? And to get more depressed because now
it's been longer. Decide you don't want help anymore.
Exactly. And then start the cycle all over again.
Yep. And the cycle is progressive, especially with substance abuse, but even in just depression and anxiety, it's a progressive cycle. So the next time it comes around, it's going to be worse. And
absolutely.
Again, and it's worse. Absolutely. It comes around again, and it's worse.
Actually, I wanted to touch on that just a little bit since we're still talking.
Sure.
We didn't mention it earlier, but as far as mental health goes, the news, Facebook, social media in general has had a huge negative impact on mental health over the last 10, 15, 20 years. Huge.
Absolutely.
And I've seen that too. Yeah. We've discussed this before, but scientifically speaking, the reason is positive things like, not really Facebook isn't always positive, but say
getting likes and stuff.
Yeah, so whenever you get a like or somebody comments on your picture, your little duck face, blah, whatever, your new boots or whatever, it causes your brain to produce a dopamine response, just like cocaine, just like sugar.
It does. They very intentionally modeled it after
of course. And if your pleasure center is always being bombarded by your neurotransmitters, eventually your body says, I got to back this off a little bit. So your body actually stops producing as much dopamine, which means now you're addicted to Facebook likes. And so the news actually today has kind of an opposite effect, because the news is like nuclear war, Russia, Ukraine, you're crazy, you don't deserve life anymore, the world's going to burn, the stock market's crashing, banks are closing, and your brain is not designed to just handle 100% negative fear bombardment 24 hours a day. It's just not. You need a break, but you don't get a break. So your brain constantly tries to adjust, and it has the opposite effect of getting too much dopamine. Now you're depressed. You're chronically depressed because the news told you, you were going to die tomorrow in a nuke anyways. So
that's interesting too, because so we're talking about social media, and then you went to the news. They actually learned from the same algorithms, right?
Yeah, of course.
So the news has learned that. Well, and social media is probably what taught them this. Same algorithms. That negative, fear-mongering information is what gets them clicks. And so they're a business. So they need to make money, so they need those clicks.
Stressing on getting help and how important it is.
Yeah.
Recognizing you have a problem, finding somebody that you trust, how to get help, who to get help, having a friend to call, calling a relative, calling the 988 number or anything. Just do it. Just do it. I know it's not easy. I know it's not. I've been there myself.
It might be the hardest thing you ever do, depending on your situation.
But I believe that everybody is worth it and deserves that help. We all deserve to be right in our mind and our body. And you have to get your mind right to get everything else right. Your mind is going to lead the pack.
Yeah, if you're not taking care of yourself, you're not serving anyone.
Yeah. So that's just what I wanted to close with is I know it sounds like it's he said just do it. He's never. Yes, I have for years. And
you've definitely told me that. Yeah.
I wish I had just done it the first time that I recognized and was like, yeah, I'm good.
I know, me too.
And stay blessed, everyone.